Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving headfirst into a topic that, well, for many it's shrouded in sensationalism, maybe fear, definitely a lot of misunderstanding. Satanism.
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So forget the pop culture stuff you might have seen. Our goal today is really to cut through all that noise and explore what the source material actually says.
That's right. And our core text for this deep dive is Anton Szandor LaVey's The Satanic Bible, which came out in 1969. And this wasn't just, another book on the occult. It fundamentally codified Satanism into a structured, kind of modern belief system.
And our mission here is to unpack its unique philosophy, really delve into its very distinct approach to magic, and see how it contrasts with other spiritual traditions. We're going to present the book's ideas impartially, give you a clear understanding of what it actually advocates, not what popular imagination often conjures up. Let's get started. So to really get this philosophy, we kind of have to begin with its architect, Anton Szandor LaVey. Born in Chicago, 1930, moved to California as a kid, and his early life seems incredibly formative. Later, he'd be known to his followers as the Black Pope.
Yeah, and LaVey's unique worldview was heavily shaped by those early experiences. I mean, at just 16, playing organ in a carnival, he saw what he described as a profound hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy, how?
Well, he observed men who'd be openly lusting after dancers on a Saturday night. Right, and the very next morning, Sunday, he'd see those same men with their families at these tent show evangelist revivals, begging for forgiveness for those exact carnal desires.
Oh, wow.
Only to be back next Saturday doing the same thing, this constant cycle, this perceived sin and unaddressed repentance. It really influenced him deeply.
Yeah, that's quite an insight into, well, human nature, seeing that so close.
Mm.
But his observations weren't just limited to the carnival, were they?
No, not at all. He famously dropped out of high school, joined the Clyde Beatty Circus, started as a cage boy, then became an assistant animal trainer, and he developed this strong connection with big cats.
Right.
And this experience really solidified his belief that all animate creatures are basically bestial, which is a core concept later on. He also worked as a carnival magician's assistant, learned about hypnosis, dove deeper into occult studies.
And then came his time as a crime photographer, which sounds like it must have been a really stark contrast to the carnival lights.
Oh, incredibly grim, yeah. For 3 years, he saw the bloodiest, grimiest side of human nature. Violent crimes, accidents, just horrific things people do. He talks about asking himself, where is God? When faced with such suffering, especially when people would just shrug it off as God's will.
That must have been disillusioning.
Deeply. That, combined with his earlier observations about hypocrisy, led him to quit. He felt he couldn't find any book that gave an objective view of magic without what he called sanctimonious fraud, or just guilt-ridden ramblings. So he thought, well, I'll write it myself.
And the result was the Satanic Bible, 1969. It didn't just present a philosophy. It really codified modern Satanism and put LaVey right at the center. And it's been continuously in print, acting almost like scripture for many.
It has, yeah. And interestingly, a lot of people who found it felt like they were already sort of Satanists in their heart, but just didn't have a name for how they already felt until they read the book.
So give them a framework.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book is often seen as promoting this kind of secular individualism that dismisses any belief in the existence of a deity, good, evil, or indifferent. Now, the title and the packaging, they're definitely intentionally provocative, right? But the content itself, on the surface, is almost ironic because it has very little to do with traditional demons or forbidden knowledge in the way people expect.
But the cover image itself can be so powerful, it overshadows the text.
Right. Unfortunately, yeah. It can become this sort of visual fetish that erases the actual content sometimes.
That's a really vital distinction. And it brings us right to the core of the book's philosophy. Let's talk about Satan himself, or maybe more accurately, the symbol of Satan. Because it's definitely not the horned, hooved guy most people picture, is it?
Absolutely not, no. Most Satanists following the book don't accept Satan as an anthropomorphic being, like a literal person. Instead, Satan merely represents a force in nature, the powers of darkness that, traditional religions haven't really scientifically labeled or understood.
A force of nature.
Yeah. And the word Satan itself, semantically, it means the adversary or opposition, the accuser. He symbolizes opposition to religions that condemn natural human instincts. LaVey also uses other powerful names symbolically. Lucifer, the Roman bearer of light, enlightenment. Belial, the Hebrew term meaning without a master, representing earthiness and independence, and Leviathan, the Hebrew serpent from the depths, signifying the unknowable sea.
So it's more like a symbolic rallying point, an adversarial force against conventional dogma. And these principles are laid out really clearly in what are called the 9 satanic statements. How do these statements flip traditional concepts on their head?
Oh, they're absolutely the bedrock of LaVeyan Satanism. They radically redefine things like indulgence, vengeance, responsibility. For instance, they advocate indulgence instead of abstinence, vengeance instead of turning the other cheek.
Very direct.
Very. They present man as just another animal, sometimes worse than those on all fours, actually. And they assert that all the so-called sins, if they lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification, are valid. And maybe the most provocative one. Satan is seen as the church's best friend because he's kept it in business all these years.
That's certainly a direct challenge.
Okay.
Given this framework, it's pretty clear there's a strong rejection of traditional ideas of God and any kind of afterlife.
Precisely. The Satanist, according to LaVey, does not believe in God in the conventional sense. God is seen as a human invention, an externalized ego people created to escape their own carnal selves.
So, worshiping God is
Basically worshiping the man who invented that God by proxy. That's the view. And there's no heaven, no hell. The core belief hammers home the here and now. Here and now is our day of torment. Here and now is our day of joy. Here and now is our opportunity. Choose ye this day, this hour, for no redeemer liveth.
Wow.
Life itself is the one great indulgence. Death is the one great abstinence. So the lust for life becomes paramount.
This sounds like it leads to a very different approach to morality and human nature. It suggests fixed moral codes are basically thrown out.
Exactly. The book advocates for an empirical approach to morality. It flatly rejects fixed moral codes as just human-made and therefore changeable or even destroyable. It starkly contrasts the Christian love one another with the satanic directive to hate your enemies with a whole heart and, if struck, to smash them down.
So the golden rule gets a twist.
A big twist. The modified golden rule here is, do unto others as they do unto you. If kindness isn't returned, well then you should treat them with the wrath they deserve. It recognizes that humans aren't just all benign or all loving. We're capable of both love and hate. And it suggests expressing hate through ritual can, paradoxically, allow for deeper love.
This focus on self-interest, individual will.
Yeah.
It reminds me of another philosophy. Is there a connection to Ayn Rand's objectivism, maybe?
You're definitely picking up on a significant influence there, yeah. LaVeyan Satanism has been described as advancing this strident libertarianism reminiscent of Ayn Rand's objectivist philosophy, which, famously touted the virtues of selfishness.
Right.
In fact, the source material notes that quotes from Rand's Atlas Shrugged directly parallel LaVey's 9 satanic statements. Both emphasize man as an end in himself, pursuing his own happiness, rejecting sacrifice, guilt, and what traditional religions label sins, things like reason, morality, creativity, joy.
That really cements the idea of Satanism as a philosophy of maybe self-empowerment or self-ownership. Okay, moving from the philosophy to the practice, let's talk about satanic magic. How does the Satanic Bible actually define magic?
Okay, magic is defined pretty specifically as the change in situations or events in accordance with one's will, which would, using normally accepted methods, be unchangeable.
Okay, so changing things through willpower.
It's essentially, yes. The book views it as a blend of applied psychology and, certain scientifically unexplainable phenomena, but it's really about the magician directing their own will, not relying on external supernatural beings or anything like that.
And is there a split between white and black magic in this view? Like good versus evil magic?
No, the book is very explicit. Satanism draws no such dividing line. Magic is just magic. It can be used to help or hinder, depending on the magician's will. It actually looks with disdain upon white witchcraft groups.
Why the
It calls their altruistic claims sinning on the layaway plan. The view is that it's a kind of guilt-ridden pseudo-Christian philosophy. It critiques white magicians for hypocritically calling on so-called evil forces while simultaneously trying to protect themselves from those same forces.
So if magic is just magic, what are the main categories within satanic practice then?
There are 2 main categories described. First is greater magic. This is the ritual or ceremonial stuff. It involves performing a formal ceremony, specific place, specific time.
Okay.
Its main function is to isolate the otherwise dissipate adrenal and other emotionally induced energy and convert it into a dynamically transmittable force. It's meant to be a purely emotional act. Any intellectual planning happens before the ceremony starts.
How does that work? How do you isolate that energy?
It uses an environment what the book calls a ritual or intellectual decompression chamber. Think chants, bells, candles, darkness things to help participants disassociate from the outside world and really focus that emotional energy.
Okay, so greater magic is the formal, intense ritual. What's the second category?
That's lesser magic. This is non-ritual, more manipulative. It involves wile and guile obtained through various devices and contrived situations.
Wile and guile.
Oh.
Like everyday manipulation.
Kind of, yeah. In simpler terms, it's about reading and manipulating people and their actions toward the fulfillment of one's desired goals. This includes techniques like something called the command to look, which is basically using compelling visual cues and themes like sex, sentiment, wonder to grab attention and influence people psychologically.
Ah, okay. So greater magic is the big ceremony, lesser magic is more subtle, day-to-day influence. Now within greater magic, the book outlines 3 types of rituals, right? Tied to basic human emotions.
That's right, 3 types. The first is the sex ritual. The aim here is to create desire in a specific person or to summon a sex partner. It requires intense sexual feeling building up to an orgasm, often achieved through autoerotic means, like masturbation, which acts as the release of the magical force. These are generally best performed privately.
Makes sense. What's the second type?
That's the compassion or sentiment ritual. This is used for helping yourself or helping others, things like health, success, happiness. But it requires genuine sympathy, a deep emotional concern for whoever the ritual is for. Again, like sex rituals, these are usually best done privately.
Okay, so sex and compassion. But Satanism acknowledges hate too. How does the philosophy handle intense negative emotions? Is there a ritual for that?
Absolutely. The third type is the destruction ritual. This is your hex or curse. It's specifically for expressing anger, annoyance, disdain, or pure hate towards someone who you feel has unjustly wronged you.
So you're ritually attacking them.
Symbolically, yes. The ritual aims to symbolically destroy the victim, which is intended to lead to their actual physical, mental, or emotional downfall. Now, crucially, the text suggests something interesting. The victim's non-belief in magic can actually make them more vulnerable to the curse's effect, because they won't consciously put up any kind of defense or guard against it. But the book also includes a very stark warning. This kind of ritual should never be done unless you're fully prepared for the ultimate consequences. It's not taken lightly.
Right, a serious undertaking. Now, to perform any of these rituals, sex, compassion, destruction, the book lists several key ingredients. What are the core things you need for satanic magic to supposedly work?
Okay, yeah, several components. The first and most fundamental is desire. You have to really want the outcome. The book advises be as a child and do not stifle desire lest you lose touch with the first ingredient.
So pure, uninhibited wanting.
Pretty much. Second is timing. This is seen as crucial for the spell being received by the target. It's thought to be most effective when the target is most receptive mentally, which is often during their deepest phase of the dream sleep phase, or even during periods of daydreaming or intense boredom.
Hitting them when their guard is down, mentally speaking. What else?
Third is imagery. This means creating a really vivid mental picture or even a physical blueprint of what you want to happen. You could use drawings, writings, acting it out, specific scents, sounds, whatever makes it real for you. It's presented as a practical tool for shaping material reality, very much opposed to just abstract spiritual visualization.
Okay, desire, timing, imagery. What else?
Fourth is direction. This is about accumulating all that emotional energy and then releasing the force during the ritual itself. The idea is not to dwell on the desires before or after the ceremony because that's seen as dissipating the focused energy you need.
Focus the power at the right moment. And the last ingredient.
The fifth and really critical one is the balance factor. This is basically about knowing your own limitations and capabilities. Being realistic. The book states magic is like nature itself, and success in magic requires working in harmony with nature, not against it. It strongly warns against getting deluded by an overblown ego and trying to achieve the impossible. You have to assess what's genuinely achievable.
That seems surprisingly pragmatic in a way. Grounded. Now, the book also talks explicitly about satanic sex and even masturbation. How does it tackle these topics, especially given, common societal taboos?
Yeah, it's very direct. It advocates for sexual freedom, but defines that as the freedom to be faithful or to indulge with multiple partners based purely on your individual needs and desires. It essentially condones any sexual activity between mature adults who willingly take full responsibility for their actions, even if society considers it taboo.
And masturbation specifically.
Regarded as perfectly natural and healthy, absolutely not sinful. The book frames its condemnation by traditional religions as a kind of malicious scheme designed to induce guilt and force people to atone for sins by paying the mortgages on temples of abstinence.
That's certainly a different perspective than many are used to. It lays out a moral framework quite distinct from traditional views. What about the ritual tools and trappings? Are there specific items used to help these rituals work?
Yes, the rituals often employ various symbolic tools to help focus intent and amplify that emotional energy we talked about. The most prominent is the symbol of Baphomet, the inverted pentagram with a goat's head inside. That represents the carnal instincts of man, defiance, duality. Then you have the altar, the chalice for the elixir of ecstasy, usually wine, the sword of power for gesturing and directing force. They all serve to create this focused, emotionally charged atmosphere.
And clothing.
Right. Specific dress codes are suggested too. Black robes for male participants, and for women, clothing that is most sexually appealing possible, or all black for older women. The stated reason is to stimulate the male members and intensify that adrenal energy needed for the ritual. Things like symbolic phallus and a gong also have specific roles in the ceremony.
Okay, so a very structured, symbolic environment for greater magic. This brings us back to how Satanism, as LaVey presents it in the book, contrasts and compares with other belief systems. Christianity obviously seems like the main counterpoint.
It really is. Christianity is presented as the clear antithesis throughout the whole text. Satanism positions itself directly against what it sees as Christian self-denial, guilt, and hypocrisy. It aligns with those God is dead declarations that were popular around the time the book came out.
And the black mass. That's always the lurid image people have.
Right. And the book addresses it, but reinterprets it. It's presented less as just blasphemy and more as a kind of psychodrama, maybe even a parody of Christian services. LaVey tried to shift these away from just negative mockery towards what he called positive forms of celebrations. Things like satanic weddings, funerals that avoid platitudes, and those lust and destruction rituals we discussed.
So it's not merely flipping Christian symbols, but creating its own functional rituals. And what about core Christian concepts like an afterlife or selling your soul?
Views on those are very strong. The book condemns the Christian emphasis on an afterlife and the whole idea of being God-fearing. Concepts like selling your soul are seen basically as terror tactics designed to keep people locked into traditional religious frameworks. And there's that wry line again that Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had as he has kept it in business all these years. The implication is that fear of the devil is actually a key driver for many traditional religions.
Okay, so beyond Christianity, how does LaVey's philosophy interact with, say, Eastern beliefs or other mystical traditions? Does it engage with them?
It engages mostly by contrasting itself sharply against them. The book explicitly criticizes Eastern mystical beliefs, saying they teach humans to discipline themselves against any conscious will for success so they might dissolve themselves into universal cosmic awareness.
Which is the opposite of the satanic focus.
Exactly. It's presented as directly opposed to the satanic focus on vital existence, on ego fulfillment, on earthly accomplishment. The text even notes that a modern black mass, in the LaVeyan sense, might involve blaspheming things like Eastern mysticism, psychiatry, and the psychedelic movement, basically rejecting anything seen as an alternative but still ultimately constricting viewpoint.
And what was LaVey's take on other big names in occultism, like Crowley or Levi?
Highly dismissive. He lumped much of the existing occult literature, including white magic, under labels like sanctimonious fraud and esoteric gibberish. He specifically called out figures like Aleister Crowley and Eliphas Levi as sustainers of occult unwisdom who, in his pretty harsh view, couldn't even get off a semi-logical thought.
Ouch. So even within the broader occult world, he was drawing sharp lines.
Very sharp. While you might see a Hindu deity like Shiva listed among the infernal names in the book, it's crucial to understand that's more symbolic borrowing, not any kind of real philosophical alignment with Hinduism itself. Same goes for mentioning the legend of the 9 unknown men, which is linked to the Buddhist emperor Asoka. It's cited as maybe a historical or literary influence on the Church of Satan's structure, not an embrace of Buddhist philosophy.
Got it. Clear distinctions drawn there. What about white witchcraft specifically? You mentioned the disdain earlier.
Yeah. The book explicitly looks with disdain upon white witchcraft groups because they feel that altruism is sinning on the layaway plan. It accuses white witches of hypocrisy, saying they can't really divorce themselves from the negative stigma of witchcraft and end up basing, quote, 75% of their philosophy on the trite and hackneyed tenets of Christianity.
So, still tied to the guilt framework.
That's the argument. It criticizes their belief that cursing someone comes back threefold, as just another example of a guilt-ridden philosophy, effectively tying it right back to the Christian concepts that LaVeyan Satanism fundamentally rejects.
Okay, so to kind of wrap this up, the Satanic Bible really does present a coherent, definitely self-focused philosophy that's quite distinct from traditional religious dogma. It offers this practical, very human-centered approach to magic, emphasizing indulgence, self-responsibility, living fully in the here and now, and it fundamentally challenges those deep-seated concepts of guilt and external deities.
It really does. It turns many conventional ideas upside down, doesn't it? Reframing what society often labels as sins into potential avenues for personal gratification and fulfillment.
Which leads us to maybe a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider. If LaVey's philosophy encourages embracing parts of human nature that are often suppressed and turning bad things into good things, what sins, quote-unquote, in your own life might, if you look at them through this very different lens, actually lead to some unexpected understanding or maybe even a profound sense of personal power? It's definitely a lot to ponder.